All right, so number 11 is talking about a new weed killer compared to the standard weed killer. We're trying to figure out which is not a correct statement about the results. So we'll kind of go through and find the not correct one. It says, at both high and low concentrations, the new chemical gives better weed control than the standard weed killer. So if I'm looking at the low concentration versus low, the new is better. High and high, the new is better. Okay, so that's a true statement. B, fewer weeds grow at higher concentrations of both chemicals. So if I was looking at high and high, high versus low in the standard, high versus low in the new, that's a true statement. C, the results for the standard are less variable than those for the new. That's definitely true. There's less spread in the standard than there is in the new. High and low concentrations of either chemical have approximately the same effects on weed growth. That doesn't look true, right? The high is different than the low in either chemical. It's not the same, in my opinion. There's clearly a difference in the high for the standard, and there's a pretty big difference in the standard in the new, in the high concentration for the new. So D would be the correct answer here. E, some of the results for the low concentration of weed killer show fewer weeds growing than some of the results for the high concentration. That's true. That happens. There's a lower minimum in the low concentration of the new. So that's a true statement. All right, moving on to free response. How we would do this type of question. I don't think I'm going to go through exactly like the process because kind of inputting this data can take a long time. But talked about constructing a histogram or whatever. This is what we would do. So in this problem number 12, it gives me data. So whenever it gives me data, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plug that data in to my my stat edit tool on my calculator, and then construct a histogram using the information or the way that we did that in that last podcast. So that would be pretty simple, right? Easy points right there. You're going to have to construct a histogram on this test. And then figuring out if there are any outliers, that's where we do the 1.5 times the IQR. Add that to Q3, subtract it from Q1. I do that same thing with this this problem. In this case, I think there is an outlier in this problem. Yeah, 151 is an outlier. And then would it be better to use mean and standard deviation or median and IQR? In this case, since there's an outlier and since it's a little bit skewed to the right, I would definitely use median and IQR. This question right here is great. All three of these questions you're going to have to know on a free response question on this test. This is like the perfect question for this free response test. Make sure you understand how to do this problem. Next one, talking about the relationship between diabetic status and birth defects. Part A, it says fill in the row and column totals. That's pretty easy. We're just adding across. And then compute the conditional distribution of birth defects for each diabetic status. So that would be the diabetic status is the condition. So I take 754 and put that over 785, 31 over 785. Then 362 over 375, 13 over 375. And then 38 over 47, 9 over 47. And that gives me my conditional distributions in percentages. Now, graphing it, you can graph. We're going to have a problem that's almost identical to this. You're not going to have to graph it if you don't want to. You can if you want to. This is where I would do like a segmented bar graph or a side-by-side bar graph. You could even do a mosaic, which is like above and beyond, but you don't have to. Okay. And then do these data give evidence of an association? And in this case, if the graphs were the same, there is no association. If the graphs weren't the same, then there would be an association. And in this case, there is an association. the diabetic people have one or more birth defects more often than the other diabetic status in this problem. So that's what I would do there. Number 14, back-to-back stem plots. This is really just kind of looking at a stem plot and kind of comparing the two distributions. Not really going to have to do something like this, but if I were to prefer brand X, is probably because it has a higher minimum. I would probably prefer brand Y because the median is higher. So really just kind of looking at the distributions. We're not really going to see something like that. You are going to have a stem plot on this that you're going to have to look at, but not necessarily like this. And then the last one, it has American League, National League, and comparing the distributions. You will have to do this with box plots, and you'll have to draw box plots on this test and compare the distributions. Just remember, when you're doing that, you're comparing them with SOCS, shape, outlier, center spread. Make sure you're using comparison words in that. So again, if you have any questions, please let me know. I want to help as much as possible. Help session tomorrow is starting at 7 o'clock. All right.